Welcome to Season 2, Episode 16. Today we're going to talk about effective memory resolution. There is a fundamental misunderstanding in trauma work and other negative emotional work that keeps people stuck. It goes like this. If I could just understand what happened, I'll be free. That sounds reasonable. Sounds intelligent. Sounds therapeutic, actually. And it's wrong. Because trauma and serious negative emotions are not stored as story. They are stored as an affective memory with a latent negative emotional charge. And that distinction changes everything. Let me take a moment to explain. When something overwhelming happens, something the nervous system cannot fully process in the moment, it does not get neatly filed away as a completed experience. It gets encoded. Not as language, not as logic, but as a sensory emotional imprint. This is what researchers like Joseph Ledoux demonstrated very clearly. The emotional brain, the amygdala-based system, does not require narrative. It requires association. And once that association is formed, it becomes a predictive model. What does that mean? The past is no longer in the past. It's being reactivated in the present. The person is living in the past present. And that's why someone can say, I know I'm safe, and their body goes, no, you're not. Because cognition and affect are not the same system. So now we have to ask a more precise question. If trauma is stored as an affective memory, how does it actually change? Is it possible to change? And this is where the most approaches break down, because they attempt to work on the memory without understanding the mechanism required to update it. Memory is not static. Memory is not fixed. And this is one of the most important discoveries in modern neuroscience, memory reconsolidation. When a memory is reactivated under the right conditions, it becomes temporarily labial, meaning it can change, not symbolically, not cognitively, but neurologically. And if new information is introduced during that window, the original encoding can be updated or resolved. Now, this is not theory. This is established research. And yet, most people are still trying to talk about memories instead of working with the conditions required to change them. So let's be precise. For an effective memory to resolve, 3 things must occur. First, the memory must be activated. Not intellectually recalled, but activated, meaning the nervous system must access the original encoding. Second, there must be a mismatch, what neuroscience calls a prediction error. The brain expects one outcome and yet receives another. This destabilizes the existing pattern. And third, the nervous system must experience completion, a resolution signal. Not through analysis, not through convincing, not through cognitive reframing, but through direct experience. When those 3 conditions are met, the memory updates. And when the memory updates, the physiology changes. This is the part that is often missed, because the marker of resolution is not, I understand it now, the marker is my body is no longer reacting. What does that mean? It means sleep improves, triggers disappear, baseline regulation, psycho-emotional regulation stabilizes. And that's how you know. Now here's where we take this further. Because if trauma is an unresolved affective memory, then the work is not, tell me your story. The work is, which memory when activated produces the response? And which memory when activated and resolved will create the most emotional benefit for the client? Once we identify that, the client does not have to relive it, they don't have to analyze it, and they don't have to reframe it. They engage it at the level where it exists, inside the nervous system. Now this is where effective memory resolution comes in. AMR is designed specifically to work at this level, not cognitively, not narratively, affectively. It allows us to activate the memory safely, introduce the necessary mismatch, and guide the nervous system to completion without any re-traumatization. And when that happens, something very specific occurs. The past stops intruding on the present. Not because you've learned to cope better, but because the underlying pattern, which included the triggers, has changed. This is why you'll often see changes in areas people don't expect. Like sleep normalizes, emotional reactivity drops, relationships become more engaging and easier because the system is no longer defending against something that is no longer active. Now let's address something directly. People often ask, do I have to go back and relive everything? The unequivocal answer is no. In fact, if you are reliving the experience, you're likely reinforcing the pattern. The goal is not re-exposure, the goal is reconsolidation. Those are not the same thing. One repeats the past, one updates the past. So the question becomes, are you working with a method that understands this distinction? Or are you using some modality that helps people manage symptoms without resolving the cause? Because those two paths lead to different outcomes. One creates temporary relief, and I will suggest dependency on the clinician. The other creates long-lasting change and empowerment. So if you're a clinician, or if you're a coach, or someone who works with people at a high level, this distinction's not optional. It's foundational. Because once you understand this, you stop asking, how do I help this person feel better? And you start asking, what needs to change at the level of the nervous system for this to resolve? That's a very different way of working. And it produces very different outcomes. Now imagine just for a moment, imagine working with someone, instead of managing their anxiety, you resolve the memory that generates it. Instead of helping them cope with triggers, you remove the triggers for them. Instead of teaching regulation strategies, their baseline becomes regulated. This is what happens when you work at the level of effective memory. And this is exactly what we teach inside the clinical applications of NLP program. We teach how to identify the right memory, how to access it safely, how to guide the nervous system through a process of resolution that is structured, repeatable, and grounded in neuroscience. No guesswork, no endless processing and interviewing, just precise intervention at the level that actually creates change. So if you're serious about this work, if you want to move beyond symptom management and into the actual resolution, I'd invite you to take the next step, look at a certification, understand the model, and decide if this is the level you want to operate. Because once you see this, you can't unsee it.